In fact, I want one more analogy on gold and wages. And actually, I was talking to my dad, and he reminded me about this, and so I thought I'd talk about it. Remember Henry Ford when he was making the Model T? He was very famous because he raised the wages of his workers, and he was paying $5 a day to assembly line workers, which was a very, very good salary back in the day. It was 100 years ago for somebody to earn on a production line. Remember, these are skilled workers. They're good workers, but they're not, they didn't go to college. Most of them probably didn't even go to high school. But they're good workers, and he paid up because he wanted the best workers because he was producing these cars. Well, let's think about what that $5 a day is in today's money. Remember, the dollar, $20 was an ounce of gold back then. So to put it in perspective, Henry Ford paid his workers $25 a week, which was an ounce and a quarter of gold, which is what they earned, 1.25 ounces of gold a week. Well, what is 1.25 ounces of gold today? Well, that's $2,000. So in today's terms, Henry Ford was paying his workers $2,000 a week. That's $104,000 a year. That is more than Ford workers are earning today, even if you throw in the benefits. That's more than they're earning. And you got to remember that back then, there were no taxes. That was their take-home pay. $2,000 a week was after tax because there were no income taxes. There were no payroll taxes. So how much would Ford have to pay its workers today for them to take home $104,000 a year after tax? I mean, it's not even close. And think about this. When Henry Ford was paying his workers, I would guess that the average production line worker at Ford earned twice what the average Ford worker makes today. Maybe closer to 3 times when you factor in everything. Now, yes, they didn't get their health care from the company, but health care was so inexpensive back then. It was pretty cheap to go to the doctor. But even if you're going to err on the conservative side, you could say that Ford paid his workers twice as much, adjusted for inflation and benefits, as Ford pays the workers today. And that was without the UAW. There was no union back then. There was no minimum wage back then. So all this nonsense about how the unions are responsible for high wages, that minimum wage. No, go back to Henry Ford. None of this was happening in a free market without any unions, without any minimum wage. He was paying his workers twice what they're being paid today. And you know what? The cars were affordable. The beauty of the Model T was that Henry Ford bought automobiles to the masses. So even though workers were paid much more 100 years ago than they are today, or I don't know if it was maybe 90 years ago, I forget exactly when they were cranking out those Model Ts. But even though workers were paid twice what they were paid today, we made cars for less money in real terms. People were able to buy these cars. So it's all nonsense. And you really have to think about how far we've declined as a nation. Right? And remember, those Ford workers who had a job at $5 a day, that was plenty of money. Their wives didn't work. Their wives were able to stay at home and raise their kids. I would bet that the average Ford worker today doesn't have a stay-at-home wife taking care of their kids. Absolutely not. His wife is out in the workforce because he doesn't make enough money with all the labor unions and the minimum wage after paying all the taxes. That guy working for Ford can't support his wife, let alone his family, because he needs the income of his wife to support his kids. Whereas that assembly line worker, before any of this stuff happened, making $5 a day, was able to support his wife. Maybe he had 5 or 6 kids. Who knows? He didn't have any credit cards. He was able to get by. It shows you how far back we've gone as a nation. And just imagine how much American workers would be earning if we never added all the Great Society programs, if we never added all the New Deal programs, if we had stayed a free market economy, if we had stayed on a gold standard, if we had followed the Constitution. Just imagine what life would be like in America today. In fact, you can't even imagine it. The standard of living would be off the charts. It would be unparalleled. There would be nothing like it on the planet Earth. We'd have to be looking at other solar systems to find something equivalent to what we would have had in this country. We had it all going for us, and we completely blew it